What's up?
We got Rad Bromance in the house. Sweet. So, when we last chatted, I remember asking you to work on being less respectful, right? Learning to turn it on.
Yeah.
Have you been working on that?
A little bit. I haven't necessarily worked on disrespect explicitly, but
Sure.
I have started to think a little bit more mindfully about what setups I have access to and how to like more reliably mix my offense up.
Cool.
I haven't had as much chance as I'd like to start like sitting down and like watching match footage and like really trying to farm out and like X-copy some good Slayer setups.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely still on my to-do list.
Gotcha.
And I've like messed around a little bit with training mode to try to like get it feeling good in my hands when I have opportunities to like have short strings or sequences where I can apply a little bit of pressure, and then understanding what opportunities I have to vary that pressure and what rewards I get from exercising those opportunities in different ways.
Sweet. So that sounds like useful work. Personally, if I were you, I would bump up the video watching a little bit higher on the priority list, mostly because once you have an idea of specific things to work on, then a lot of the whys fall into place as you try and use them.
Yeah.
So it's useful to like see kind of what the end as we know it looks like and work your way backwards instead of trying to figure it out for yourself. That there's a lot of fun and creative stuff and a lot of value comes from figuring out yourself. It's nice to do them both, basically.
Yeah, and I think like some of that is definitely I think my style in general.
Sure.
Like I think I tend to play games very expressively, and so the fact that I kind of figure some of it out on my own, I think is important to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's also like, and some of this may just be self-perceived, and probably at least some of it is a bad habit I'll have to break, but like, I kind of enjoy having a slightly weird style of Slayer, I feel like, compared to a lot of other Slayers.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people love just like going ungun and ham, and that's awesome, and I definitely do, like you said, need to learn how to turn that on and tap into it. But I also think he's a lot of fun to just play as the sort of like weird, like hit and run, like focus on teleports and dandy step, and like really controlling space creatively is what I find really fun about him.
Yeah. So the note that I would like you to make about that is that you are often far more enabled to be creative when you have a wider set of techniques and knowledge of situations at your disposal, right? And so there's a lot of stuff which you are doing now, or I imagine there's a lot of stuff that you're doing now which you feel ownership over, and that's great. And at least in my experience, when I play these games, I tend to find that putting that stuff in conversation with stuff that is considered known goods makes it more creative rather than less. Because then, So cool, let's play some games.
All right. Also, I feel like, I don't know if it was like you took off the training weights or if it was that video review you did on Slayer footage, but man, I feel like I got bopped the last couple times we played.
Oh, so to be honest, if I'm playing in the casual, like in casual lobbies instead of doing the one-on-ones, I will, especially if I'm talking a lot, I will usually just autopilot, which means that you're getting like very disrespectful autopilot chip because I'm talking a lot and I'm not really paying attention. Which is kind of what I'm doing now, right? I tend to be a little bit more gentle if we're doing the one-on-ones.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I'm gonna stop.
Duel. Keep on rocking.
Woo! Nice. Ooh. Wow.
Heaven or hell. Duel 1.
He is very cool. Slayer is very cool.
You got good hands.
Woo! Woo! Nice.
Duel 2. All or nothing.
Cool. Nice. Woo! Nice.
Duel 3. Turn up the heat.
Oh, nice. You've been much better about using your meter. Good shit.
Yeah, I've been definitely trying to at least like spend it somehow, some way, just get it off my
Yeah,
finger.
it's good. It's good.
Heaven or hell. Duel 1. Let's rock.
Rarely seeing Guilty Gear throw attack.
Yeah. You only get one frame. Nice.
Alright. Caught you off guard with the rare double Red Roman cancel for good measure.
Hey, I mean, you do what you gotta.
I'm not mashing, you're mashing.
Oh. Nice.
Duel 3. All or nothing.
Ugh. Ooh, nice. Woo!
I can't believe I lived through that first fucking small miracle.
It is an incredibly dumb mix-up. Like,
Duel 1.
Bears actually has some really good tech videos showing like different ways to deal with it. But it's just so easy to see that super and just be like, fuck it, I'm guessing.
Yep.
It's too much work to practice this. Nice. Oh, nice.
The latest combo.
Duel 2. All or nothing.
Yeah, you actually could have teched out. It was gravy.
Black beat, yeah.
And it was the wall splat that messed it up, actually.
It's not over yet.
Nice. Woo! Good shit.
It's one way out.
This is the best possible outcome. Ah, there we go.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's got like 15 knives there or something, and they all show up at about the same time and place. If I do it right on top of you, you eat a lot of chip. All right, let's go back to the room.
Chip damage. Yeah.
So all right, first off, on your end, one thing you think that went well, one thing you think that went not so well.
Yeah, so the thing that I felt like I was noticing, mostly because I started to look for it a little bit more, is I think I need to be a lot more on point, like anti-airing. Like I think specifically using 2S, because I rarely have time to get off of 6P because you don't travel in like predictable enough lines to set one up. So it's like a very hard read. But I feel like there's a lot of times where I can start checking you in the air with 2S that will sort of help reduce some of the just kind of amount of general shenanigans, I guess. But I don't know. In terms of things that I thought went well, I'm not as sure.
Okay. So right off the bat, I felt like your offense was overall better. You were successfully more disrespectful. So I would mark that as something that went well. When it comes to anti-airing, you were right that 6P is kind of a tricky option. It's very high risk, high reward, right? Yeah. You get a counter hit 6P, you get like the mid-screen wall bounce. I think you get at least one pile bunker. Like you can do a lot of fucking damage off of counter hit 6P, but it takes forever to come out. You're right. 2S is one option. Another option is air throw.
Yeah.
And the thing about 2S is that it's great for beating shit, but it's you need to be very specific and precise in how you use it because it is not a big box, right?
Yeah,
So-
and it's not active for very long.
Exactly. So you're relying on my line of motion intersecting your hitbox there. The nice thing about getting used to air throws is one, you get a hard knockdown, and which is really good, especially Slayer. Like mid screen, you can still do dash cross ups and whatever afterwards. But it's also you get to move towards the point of it, towards the target, right? And so it's actually a little bit easier to aim once you get used to it because you don't have to press a button and hope that I run into it. You get to come to me, right?
Yeah, and sort of time the press a little bit more where it's like, okay, like once we get to like the magic range. So that's the thing. I needed to really work on figuring out what the range is on air throw so I can know when to start using that button. Because like I've had feedback about that before, specifically of like looking for people jumping out of the corner using air throw to stuff that.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able, like, I just haven't put time into it. So I think it's something where I probably just need to, like, spend time in, like, training tool or something like that to
Yes.
just put the time in and get used to the feeling of getting air throws. Because, like, it's not a very intuitive input to me.
So there's a couple things you should pay attention to in the air throw. One, the easiest place to practice is just you start out with a dummy that you just set to jump, and you practice air throwing, trying to air throw it at different ranges, at different points in the jump, etc., etc. And the second thing to do is practice air throwing as predictable tech punishes. So after you finish a combo that ends in an air tech opportunity, just figure out where you need to be to air throw them at the earliest possible tech, right? So you just set the dummy to tech. You can set him to tech in a certain direction, or random, or whatever. And then practice doing the combo and then following up with air throw, right?
Okay.
When you're doing air throws in this game, it has to be either 4 or 6. You cannot do any of the diagonals for an air throw. So you need to be very precise in your input.
Okay.
But like air throws are something everyone should be working on. For Slayer, they're particularly useful because they're a very fast anti-air option.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what I noticed in terms of the way you're playing today, offense is better. I think you should work the command grab into your offense as well, because frankly, it's way scarier than his throw. And that's for 2 reasons. One is that you get a combo, but 2 is that since it's a mashable staggers, sometimes you'll catch me mashing too much and I'll get counter hit.
Okay.
Like, the thing about a throw is that when you throw me, I know that I get to not worry about the next, like, 30 to 40 frames where I'm on the ground and you finish the anim and all that other stuff. When you go for the bite, I'm not in, like, a state of safe stun.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's actually far more panicky than just getting grabbed.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah. But like overall, you're doing a much better job pressing buttons and getting in my face. I think if we had played a little bit longer, you probably would have been able to get a better idea of like when I was pressing buttons or when I was going for blitz or whatever. Oh, and also you should honestly practice like the blitz back and forth, because right now I'm getting
I
free
need to
blitzes.
learn how to do the counter blitz, because I've seen a few where I just like watch it happen and it's like deer in the headlights. I'm just like But I've seen people. So is the formula just is it like focus attack, right? Where it's like if you blitz second, you can just like hold it and then counter their blitz for free, basically.
To be honest, I'm not going to sit down and explain it all right now, because there's a lot of dumb-ass nuance in there.
Yo, mechanics. That's what I'm here for, man. That's absolutely what I'm here for. Guilty Gear. I'm just like, you want to just have this weird system that works in Byzantine ways for no reason? Like, sit me down for that.
Yeah. So your best odds there, I think there might be a mission that gets you over some basic blitz back and forth. I don't remember. It's honestly something that's good to practice with another person. So if you can steal someone and just practice blitzing stuff back and forth, that's the easiest way to get used to it. A lot of the win-loss conditions in blitz are kind of opaque, and so it takes a while to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, because it's like you have to call it out high-low, right?
So there's high-low, but there's also armor at different points in the blitz.
Oh my god.
Right? And then you have a full charged unblockable blitz on top of that. But if you go for that and then you get counter hit by the fastest blitz attack, then you'll get crumpled. Then there's air stuff, and there's like timing your anti-air or your air blitz, so you're on the ground blitzing an air attack and trying to time the follow-up so it hits them in jump recovery or jump landing and so on. There's a lot of super dumb shit in blitz. You don't need to learn all of it, but you need to be able to credibly counter blitz, or else I will be able to treat that as basically an almost free get out of jail free card.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple people who get pretty trigger happy with it. I'm probably off the same theory of like not a lot of people actually know how this works, so just use it because it's very unlikely.
Oh yeah,
someone will
it is.
punch
It is absolutely a knowledge check, right?
Yeah.
One of the when I am early in brackets, one of the first things I'll try and test with someone is A, do they know how to deal with blitz, and B, do they use it themselves, right? Because if they're not familiar with the system, you can get a lot more value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So overall, I think the thing that I would work on for you, you already know you need to level up your set play, blah, 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 blah. It is pretty clear that in neutral, you are essentially, you have a timer ticking down in your head. And once that timer escalates, or gets past a certain point, you do something. And you do something that's kind of random. Or at least, and by random, I mean, you decide to do something probably based on the circumstances of the screen you're looking at. But you aren't necessarily doing something based on something that I'm in the middle of doing. So there are a lot of times where I would be more or less standing still, and you do like a random slide or a random dandy step or press a random button. You know, like I think I saw hard slash come out a couple times. And in neutral, like you can treat it as more or less like a proximity based guessing game. But if you start teaching yourself to just wait a little bit and wait to see something that hints at the fact that I might be moving forward immediately, right? And timing the button press for that, you'll be more successful, right?
Yeah, and I almost wonder if like this might be a place where like some like old Street Fighter instincts might be a little bit useful, because it seems like in some of those circumstances, especially as Slayer, it might not hurt to literally just walk at somebody.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, I'm not going to commit to a dash, but if I just sort of like walk, then I feel like a lot of people would like flinch when Slayer walks.
So Slayer has, and it depends on the range, right? Like
Yeah, sure.
the walk, not so scary when we're outside my sweep range, because walks are really slow in this game. But Slayer does have other forms of getting around, right? And I would encourage you to take a look when you're watching for like good Slayer players move. Look at the tools they use for movement, right? Because some of his attacks are actually useful as movement tools.
Yeah, like 6HS I think is also pretty good for that, because it moves you pretty far forward and it's just like active as fuck. It's like, please walk into me.
Yeah. So you want... Oop, someone set the dog off. So you want to be... in neutral, you want to be just making... Like, take the guesses that you're making, which are mostly just like time and space plus, equals button, and just wait a little bit. Wait to at least be reacting to something that you see me doing, okay? And it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm reacting to the specific button. I'm waiting to see if he's doing like a stand slash or whatever. It could just be, I'm waiting to see him do something.
Yeah,
right?
a button.
Yeah. One of the things that I look for a lot, this doesn't help you as much, I don't get to do it against Slayer as much because he doesn't have a normal dash forward. But one of the things I look for when we're kind of far away from each other is, hey, are they running at me? Because people are very unlikely to stop running.
Yeah, do like faultless defense stops.
Yeah. So in their case, what I'm testing for is to see if they do a faultless stop. But like, if they're running at me, their acceleration grows over time, right? And so I want to be pressing buttons like significantly earlier if they're just a little bit further away. Because if they're running at me and they stay running, they'll collapse that last chunk of distance in a little bit. Right?
Yeah, even faster than they did the previous jump.
Exactly. Similarly, so you need to be looking for movement vectors and pressing buttons based on the vector you think is coming, right? If you do that, then we have a functional like neutral game. Without that, you're kind of just swinging, and it'll work up until a point, and then it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
The earlier you work on that, the easier it'll be. So you're gonna add that to your list of shit to do. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming by. It's a pleasure as always to have you come through and level up your fucking motherfucking Slayer.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the games. I really appreciate it. And like all your advice has just been super like to the point, and it feels very like actionable, like things that I can go and do, like watch a video and take notes, or like work on air throws, or learn how blitz works. Like these are all very simple things that I like feel like I can grasp instead of it being something very high level. Like, oh, like learn offense. It's like, okay, sure.
Yeah. You learn Guilty Gear in small chunks. That's the only way to learn this game. There's too much of it to do anything else. So you focus on the small chunks. When you run out, you'll get new small chunks. That's how the shit works.
And that's one of the things I actually really like about Guilty Gear, and I found it to be the same about Tekken, is that
Yeah.
there's a lot of little things you can learn and get better at independently that you don't feel like you're just so constrained by whether you're good at like the simple core loop, because there's always like weird stuff. Like in Tekken, you could be like, I'm just gonna become a god at sidewalking. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna spend a month learning the sidewalk, and then you do, and you're much better for it. But by practicing a skill that's largely independent of combos, like you'd be like, I'm terrible at combos,
Yeah.
but I can block every low. And then it's like, that's a valid skill that you take that to the bank.
Yeah. It's one of the funny things about games testing different kinds of player knowledge is that it can make the new player experience more intimidating, but it can also make it a lot more satisfying.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like when you remove complexity and when you remove like just volume of stuff from learning a fighting game, what you can be left with are some pretty rough skill tests that can take a long time to get better. So I'm glad you're enjoying these games, and I hope you stick with them, because it's been a blast to have you around.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thanks for coming through, and with that, we will switch over